To stand alone, or to fight side by side against the encroaching forces of oblivion.
Welcome back everyone to Exotic Grunt Gaming here, and today I am bringing you the first PvE Magicka Sorcerer build for Clockwork City from my channel, and basically everything's pretty much the same. There are some minor changes that kind of switch things around a little bit in terms of what gear we're using, but in terms of overall DPS there's actually a slight increase from what I got. The rotation wasn't perfect. I may have missed the light attack, but you'll see the rotation here shortly, and I don't have the best traits on the staff yet either. Currently using sharpened because I don't have enough of those stones to retrait it, but this will be the first weapon that I retrait. It'll go Nirnhone, and as you can see right now, if you've used my build or even other builds that recommend the Maelstrom Lightning Staff for the Magicka Sorcerer, you'll see that the biggest change to this build right now is actually the staff and the changes that Zos made to it. As it stands, the wall of elements, blockade of storms, is actually a set bonus now of this weapon, and then you also get to put an enchantment on, and that goes for all Maelstrom weapons and whatnot. Dual wield is still going to be a two-piece set, and for two-hander weapons like staves, bows, whatnot, they'll all have one-piece bonuses, and that's this. Now you're probably wondering, well, it's not active right now. How do you use it, and does it carry over? And that's the biggest thing about this build right now is the change to this. Good news is that it does carry over. So say for instance I use Blockade of Storms and I swap bars, it's still going to give me the bonus of the extra 1,341 damage to enemies in the Wall of Elements, and that's actually really huge. And as you'll see in the parse, I'll pull up the combat metrics and you'll get to see, and just take a look at the light attacks and heavy attacks and how much damage it's doing. It's a considerable boost over not having it. So I wanted to test out, because as you see, you swap to the front bar, or if you're on the back bar, the enchantment, or I mean the set bonus, is active and it shows that it's applied. But when you swap to the front bar, it's off. You don't have it anymore. So I wanted to test out, because that's not how it always was before. Before it was you apply it and then you swap bars and it's still there because it's the enchantment and it'll always be there. Well, since they made it a set bonus and now it says we have 0 of 1 items of it, the question and the concern that maybe a lot of people have had, and I know I had at first, was, well, that changes a lot, because that means now we might have to double slot Maelstrom staffs, which would totally get rid of our Julianos and Necropotence build that I had posted on my the previous video for Horns of the Reach, unless we wanted to not use a single monster piece, not even the one-piece Ice Heart. Good news is, though, that's not the case. So what I also did was I did I did a parse where I dropped the Maelstrom staff and I used just a random staff. So I wasn't getting any extra bonus, I wasn't getting the extra spell damage from Julianos or anything. I was running Moondancer, Necropotence, and a one-piece Julianos with my Moondancer front staff, just to see the damage difference, and it was considerable. Now, I could have optimized it differently. I could have run, 5-piece Julianos, 5 Necro, 1 Ice Heart, and have 2 Julianos salves. And that still works. That's still good DPS, and it will still get you up to that threshold. The problem is that now with this staff, they dropped the spell damage on it. There's no more spell damage that you get from having this staff. So what I had currently going, and one of the big selling points as to why you shouldn't have dropped the Maelstrom staff in the Horns of the Reach, was, look, when you swap bars from Julianos to Maelstrom, you're only losing 100 spell damage, but you're getting all this extra damage with the enchantment, what used to be, and now the set bonus. Well, since they dropped that, the problem is now you're losing 300 spell damage. If you're using 5-piece Julianos, 5-piece Necro, and 1-piece Ice Heart, you're going to lose all that spell damage, and I'll show you if I have it here. Okay, so we have 300 spell damage as a 5-piece bonus. We drop to the back bar. We don't even get the 189 spell damage here. So we're losing like 110 spell damage. So if you don't happen to have Moondancer and Necro and just the setup doesn't work for you, for the Moondancer and whatnot, and you want to run Julianos and Iceheart and Necro, you're gonna have to drop the Maelstrom Staff. You're gonna lose too much. You're gonna lose too much spell damage. Way too much. I mean, you're dropping 300, and you'll get some extra back when you use another staff. And the DPS threshold, it's very minimal. But is it best in slot? No, not necessarily. But is it still good enough to do things like vet trials? Absolutely. You can still do that stuff. The most important thing here is to practice the rotation. Make sure you're using pots. Have your alchemy leveled up all the way so you get the most out of those pots and they have 100% uptime. And make sure all your skills are leveled up and unlocked. And Undaunted, Metal, and Commander, also good to have. But it changes things, because in last patch I ran this setup here with the Maelstrom Staff, and I also ran the Moondancer, 4-piece Moondancer on the front bar with Necro and Alambris, and it worked. Both sets were like identical. Problem now is best in slot, there's a little bit more of a gap, not big, but I think there's a slight bit more of a gap, and that's with best in slot being 2 Alambris, 4 Moondancer if you can get the staff, and Necro. And the reason being is because you still got all the bonus from the Maelstrom Staff when you go to the back bar, and when you go to the back bar, you're losing that 129, but you still get the 3-piece bonus on this. And then when you go to your front bar, you're going to have the extra 129. Just from my parses and whatnot, this outperformed. I was able to hit my highest yet so far with this setup, and it was higher than last patch using the other setup, and that was 35.3 I think, or something like that. And you'll see that in the parse and the combat metrics. But again, when you see it, just take a look at the amount of damage that the light attacks and heavy attacks are doing. It's more now than it was before, and it's by a decent amount. The only thing that's changed in terms of abilities and rotation is actually no change to rotation really, except before. So I was activating the pet and then swapping bars. Now what we do is we activate the pet, and every other rotation we throw on Boundless Storm. You have 2 options here. A lot of fights, a lot of the vet trials we've done, especially in SO and sometimes on the mage, if there's a lot of, in VAA, if there's a lot of stamina tunes, you all stack behind her. And Boundless Storm will add an extra 1.5k damage. It's pretty powerful as an extra ability to just slot, and it increases your resistances, so it's pretty nice, and has a good radius of hitting enemies. You can stand, you don't have to be right up on top of them, but so this will add some DPS. If you are ranged, the other thing that you can do, where is it? You can run Fire Rune. You want to make sure you have all the passives unlocked though if you use it, but if you're in a ranged fight, you can actually throw this down. It even has a longer, more uptime, or a longer, the effect lasts longer, ability lasts longer than your Boundless Storm, so you could actually use this like every 3 rotations. If it makes more sense, just use it every 2, and it's a little easier for you to remember that way and keep it 100% uptime, then go for that. But as you'll see, it adds some damage. Now when it goes off, it'll end. So it's not like the effect lasts for 30 full seconds. What you do is you throw it down and it will wait, and then when it goes off, it'll be used. So it's an expensive ability, and sometimes if you start using these too much and throw them in all the time, it might be a little difficult. That's why I recommend every other rotation to toss this in, just to get a little bit more damage if you want. What else is there for changes? The only other change to my last video, I think, is just CP. Didn't respec really, we just got some more points, and since I hit CP cap, I just put some extra into spell erosion. So we get some more penetration. Especially going to be good for parses. It'll give you a little bit more accurate idea of how much damage you'll be doing, but still not going to be nearly as much. Well, I shouldn't say nearly, but it's not going to be as much because the boss's resistances are going to be pushed down more with those other buffs that you have in group. And other than that, the spell pots are the same. And at this time, go ahead and watch the parse. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can leave them in the comments below, and I'll answer them. I've been usually pretty good at it, and hopefully that this helps. If you haven't seen my build video yet, if you want a more in-depth view on it, an in-depth view on the Magicka Sorcerer and kind of the idea behind using each skill and the rotation and whatnot, I strongly recommend you go check out the Horns of the Reach one. There's no need for me to make a build video that long because not that much has changed other than we're using the kind of old setup and throwing the weapon and spell damage enchant on the Maelstrom staff now that we can enchant it. And one last thing is, the reason this is good, and as you'll see in the combat metrics, this thing has 51.1% uptime with this damage enchant, the weapon spell damage enchant. So half the time we're getting a buff of 348 spell damage to our abilities. So that also helps us get a little extra damage. So overall, with the Clockwork City, not a whole lot has changed in terms of DPS and our ability to push more DPS. But yeah, thanks for staying tuned and watching. I'll be putting up some more videos, some more parses soon. Stamina Sorcerers next, and then Stam DK and Magicka Nightblade. But not a lot has changed, so those videos will be short, but hopefully give you a good idea of where to go or how to start and whatnot. But thanks for staying tuned.
You